We're live, back in action. Welcome back to the DFS show, the weekly show. I'm your host, Andrew Erickson. I'm on Twitter at Andrew Erickson _. Joined as always by PFF's own Jared Evans. If you guys just caught myself and Ian, just wrapped up Injury Pod. If you missed out, go check it out on the stream. Go check it out on the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast subscriber, either on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Go check that out. We're not going to talk about injuries as much here, but obviously injuries play a massive role in DFS because we just have a boatload of value now kind of in the player pool. We have running backs aplenty, or the healthy running backs that we can actually play. A lot of them in really, really good spots. So I think that rostership is going to play a massive role in kind of, at least in my opinion, swaying which running backs I end up decide on playing this week, because there's a lot of great options to choose from at good price points, a lot of good matchups. So, Jared, this is a different kind of slate. What are your initial thoughts on it? And first of all, how are you doing as well?
Well, I'm doing well. Thank you very much for asking. Unfortunately, I wish that I'd listened to both of us when we were talking about which plays we wanted to do last week, because you were on the Bucks against the Dolphins, that passing attack, and then I was on the Chargers and the Browns and didn't play any of them. So.
All right. So Jared, so you're going to take out a notebook and you're going to write down what we talk about.
Exactly.
So you remember it next time you're on a computer when you're building those lineups Sunday morning.
Yes, exactly. Might need to watch this back also. Why not? Look at our beautiful faces as we talk through this slate. But yeah, I mean, dare I say, have the injuries flipped the slate on its head? Is that what's happened here?
I mean, it went. I mean, it's Kareem Hunt chalk week has basically been the new title of the week 6 main slate. I mean, it makes too much sense. You look at the way that it's set up for him. His salary is not expensive at all at 6,200, I believe he is at. So, I mean, I liked him before Nick Chubb was ruled out. So he's obviously going to be super popular. He's a player that you're going to lock into cash lineups. And I think that I kind of view him similar to how we viewed Alexander Mattison last week, where you just kind of needed to play him. And the only thing is, he's probably going to be higher rostered than Alexander Mattison was, because now that the news has come out so much earlier than the Alexander Mattison news, it's just going to be, everyone's going to talk about Kareem Hunt. So again, I don't think we need to really dive into, the reasons why you're going to play him in cash. And for people that don't play him in cash, well, then they're just going to be contributing to the rake, because he's a really obvious play to play in cash formats. Again, any really high rostered player can be faded in tournaments, but the fact that he's not expensive makes him a player that I still want to play in tournaments, and I just want to get different elsewhere. Jared, what are your thoughts?
So I think the major difference between Mattison last week and Hunt this week is the players in that same price range. Like last week, Mattison was around guys like Chase Edmonds and Tony Pollard and James Conner and Damian Harris. And you're like, well, if I don't play Mattison and I play one of these other guys in that same price range, Mattison is just going to blow past any of these running backs in, 80% of reasonable game scripts. But the running backs next to Kareem Hunt are a little more interesting this week. You got a fully loaded Joe Mixon, who seems like he's healthy against the Lions. You got DeAndre Swift in that same game. He's been dominating. You got Antonio Gibson against the Chiefs. They can't stop anybody. Jonathan Taylor against the Texans. Darrell Henderson might be a bell cow against the Giants. And we have no CMC this week, so Chuba Hubbard is less than 6K. So I think the options are a lot more plentiful if you decide to go away from Kareem Hunt. But I mean, he's a great play for all the reasons you listed, but in tournaments, you can definitely find someone probably who may outscore him in this range.
Yeah, and I think that kind of brings to the bigger point of this slate, is because there's no clear pay up guy. I mean, it's really Eckler is really the only. I mean, Dalvin Cook you can pay up for, but it's a tougher matchup against the Panthers. He'll probably be a lower roster because he's coming off the injury. And I mean, will he see the same type of workload? No, he didn't see the same type of workload when he first came back from the injury. He was kind of splitting a little bit more work with Alexander Mattison. So that's definitely a concern, especially with all of the other, potentially not necessarily contrarian, but lower rostered guys in the 6K range. You're not going to see, maybe you will see, but they're just in so many good spots. Really, I mean, Eckler's in a really good spot. Jonathan Taylor's playing the Texans. And then you just kind of listed all those other 6K running backs. So you don't, even if you don't play Hunt in a tournament, you're not even necessarily capping your ceiling because there are these other running backs that are just in also great spots as well in the same price range. So it's why it's just really, really important to like check out the rostership projections on pff.com to get a sense of who the public just isn't playing, and you just play that guy. And because they're all have good they're all in pretty good spots. So if it's Hunt's going to be like 40% or whatever, then it makes way too much sense to then play Mixon at 5% or Chuba Hubbard at 6% or whatever, whichever guy that just doesn't make the cut, which we don't know until the updated projections come in. So I think that's really the strong play, and it can be Hunt and then one of the very, very low roster guys or two guys that are kind of in the mid-range of their rostership. I still think in cash, it makes sense to play Hunt. I know on the PFF DFS pod, we talked about Darrell Henderson, and then you can always pay down for it. Also makes guys like Khalil Herbert, Darrell Williams, maybe their rostership isn't nearly as high because now you're jamming in at least Kareem Hunt as one of the running back plays. Is there a one in that group that particularly stands out to you besides Hunt that you're like, I know me personally, like people just don't like Joe Mixon. I'm playing Joe Mixon. He's playing the Lions. Like, I don't really think it needs to be super complicated.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, in my article this week, that was one of the guys that I wrote up, Joe Mixon. That was kind of before we had the injury news on him when we were kind of speculating whether or not he was going to be healthy. I was just like, well,
Like
Ryan is out.
People still like that's the thing. Like P Ryan is not there. Like that is the real like that's what matters. Like that's why he's gonna have. He's not gonna have a full workload because Zach Taylor said he's going to. It's because the backup running back literally isn't playing. And I know Chris Evans gets involved in the passing a little bit, but he played 7 snaps. They played like an injured Joe Mixon over him last week. So I mean, if you played P-Ryan last week, you felt great about it. And if Joe Mixon takes on that role, like you're feeling pretty good about it against the Detroit Lions, who just annually give up 40-point burgers to opposing running backs. Like this is the prime smash spot for Mixon. And I think that I know he was at like 6% before. We'll see if it changes that, but he's still questionable. He's on the injury report still. And people just don't like to click his name. I don't know, man. I love Joe Mixon. I think that he's in a great spot.
No, I'm right there with you. And then DeAndre Swift was the other guy that I wrote up. Bengals defense has allowed the most running back targets all season, and that's exactly what we want when we're 100%. Rostering Swift. So
Swift's price doesn't change because people don't play him because he plays in the Lions. People just won't play him, and that's why his price has not moved. Chuba Hubbard is kind of like, he didn't really stand out to me, but then talking it a little bit through with Ian a little bit more. I mean, I didn't realize he had like 29 touches last week. I was like, I don't know why I just didn't realize that, but it's a massive number. So I moved him up in the rankings a little bit after kind of just like coming to the realization that he is going to see like a monster workload again. Vikings defense is okay. It's not anything super, super special. And they don't have Rodney Smith, one of the backup running backs that was playing on third downs. He got cut because I think they thought McCaffrey was going to come back. He's not going to come back. So it's only him and Royce Freeman. So I think Hubbard is intriguing, especially at a little bit of a lower price point at 5.9. If, again, taking advantage of these salaries also makes you make different lineups. If that extra, a couple $100 like helps you get a better receiver or a better defense that you want, then I think that it makes a lot of sense to pay down for a guy like Chuba Hubbard in the 5 to 6K range. So yeah, I think that you build around these 6K backs. I know that it's been a while. I need to ask you, Jared, about Aaron Jones though, because is this Aaron Jones week? Like I know it's been a while since he's graced us with a massive game, and AJ Dillon like seemingly playing like 30-40% of the snaps is super tilting, and Aaron Jones still finds a way to rush for 100 yards, averaging like 7 yards. I tried to move him down the rankings. And I looked and I was like, dude, he averaged like 7 yards per carry. I can't move him down.
He's a beast. I think Aaron Jones, anytime he's going to be sub 10%, you got to just like sprinkle him in, especially on weeks when Devontae Adams is going to be massively popular, which I assume this will be another Devontae Adams week. Because one of those times, Aaron Jones is going to go for 3 touchdowns. It's like going to happen. I wish I had like a nice fortune ball here to tell me when exactly it was going to be. Against the Bears, yeah, why not? Bears, they're home dogs this week. We'll see what happens. I was reading Ben Brown's Stacks article this week, and he was on
the Chargers.
Yeah. He was the one who got me onto that Chargers-Browns game last week. And this week he wrote up Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson doubles.
Ben, I don't know if I can do it, man. I could do
Has
Justin
he earned
Herbert.
it though? Has he earned it?
Dude, the Bears offense is anemic, man. And again, I could be totally off on this. I liked Ben's call on the Chargers last week, but the Bears offense, like this game is just like screams to me just like slog. It's like Bears want to play slow. Dude, you know the Packers and Bengals game was so like slow that they didn't even run that many plays despite playing on overtime. Like the total plays played in
The
that game was
Packers
not,
are slow.
yeah, the
Yeah,
Packers are
they're
slow,
slow.
the Bears are slow. So I don't know if this is the spot for Aaron Jones. Maybe we're just a week away. I know he has like a really juicy matchup next week. Yeah, he gets I don't know who he plays next week, but I know I think he's a juicy matchup this week. I do think though you get behind the idea like when he's super, especially because his price point is definitely in a range people don't want to pay because you either want to pay down the 6K range, you just go up to Eckler at 7.9, who's in a good spot. So yeah, he's going to be low rostered, and it's kind of like the same thesis behind playing Derrick Henry sub 5%. You just play him because he's still 5% and it works. It doesn't matter who the defense is. It just doesn't. Just really less about the matchups and things like that. And the Bears could be without Khalil Mack. They could be without Akeem Hicks, two defensive linemen that make a significant difference. And the Bears defense, like I get, I don't know what the Bears defense, like just because they're like the Bears defense, they just get this like mantra that they're good, and they really haven't been anything special this year. So, Aaron Jones can do some damage against them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So what I was getting at before was that if you were going to play him, it might make sense to
With
pair Aaron
stack,
Jones with a Bear stack, with the Fields or an Allen Robinson or a Darnell Mooney.
I do think that makes a lot of sense. I do hope that the Hunt play does take things off Henderson. I think Henderson was the most popular running back before Hunt. The news came out about Nick Chubb. I still think he's in a really great spot for cash games. He's the bell cow there, and really just hoping he just doesn't get hurt. But it's a great matchup against the Giants. The Giants don't really run that fast. The Rams should dominate in this game. Daniel Jones is playing, which makes it just more intriguing for a little bit more back and forth action. This is a game I'm probably more likely to skinny stack rather than full blown game stack. Maybe a Matthew Stafford double because it's just really easy to set up. Like, exactly who you need to use. Maybe you do Stafford, Henderson, Cooper Kupp, bring it back with Kadarius or one of these Giants guys, Sterling Shepard. But I don't love the game environment. It's not super high in terms of like pace of play. The Rams are like, okay. The Rams do run the ball a decent amount and they don't run really super, super fast. And Giants are just going to be at the mercy of the Los Angeles Rams, and whatever they want to do, they're going to have to just reciprocate because they're going to have no choice, because I don't see them coming away with a victory here. Any other running backs down? I know the name that sticks out at 4.8 or below 5K. So Khalil Herbert is my freaking guy. I'm going to be playing him because he's got juice and I just love him. I thought I liked him in his college stuff. I liked him a lot, and he's 4.6. We could see 20, 25 touches. There's no Damian Williams, and that's the play. Like, he's going to see 20 or 25 touches in this game. He has explosive upside. He could rip off a big run against the Green Bay Packers. I'm not afraid of their run defense. And if Ben Brown is on the Bears offense doing something with Fields, Robinson, and Mooney, that means that Herbert should be able to bask in some offensive production from the Bears. He looked good last week. His numbers don't really tell at all because like in the fourth quarter, he was kind of just running into like stacked boxes. So he didn't really get that much done on the ground. But I mean, he's dirt cheap. I think there's enough like unknown about him that people may not love to play him, especially with all the other great running back options. And there's kind of ways to finagle around just getting the money up because you're not paying if like there's no like 9K running back you're paying for this week. You don't have to pay any of those guys. So I still like Herbert. Brought him up with a DFS cheat sheet. And JD McKissic, man, like if there's ever a week where JD McKissic, all the Washington football team receivers are injured, he is like a glorified slot receiver. He makes a lot of sense as a bring back in Chiefs builds. I know Ricky Seals-Jones is just an amazing play, but he's chalky. Same thing with Travis Kelce. Yeah, Jared, any other running backs that you need to talk about?
No, I think we hit most of them.
All right, then let's move on to the next position. I know we kind of jumped around. We'll go to the quarterback position. We got a bold prediction here from Simon Coolhand. Fields at home against Packers. No pass rush, no cornerbacks. Montgomery and Williams out. Fields to go 22 of 32 for 290 yards and 3 touchdowns. Bold prediction.
Is that Ben's burner?
I don't know. Mooney to go for 140 and a touchdown. I like it. And maybe it is Ben's burner.
All right,
I don't know.
I'm writing this down. I am making Justin Fields lineups this week. I'm not making the same mistake again.
That's smart. That is very smart.
Play Justin Fields, Bears, stacks. All right, now I can't forget it.
You got the notebook. All right, let's go to quarterbacks, and I guess we can kind of talk game stack. I mean, I'm probably going to be pretty chalky when it comes to doing. I mean, I think that the Mahomes double stacks just makes too much sense in the spot, and people don't look. It was the play in week 1, it was the play in week 4, and people still didn't play it. Like it wasn't like 100%. Like not everyone plays them, and they go off. And this just seems like a great bounce back spot, the football team. So yeah, I'm going to play Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I'm going to bring it back with the football team to whether it's McLaurin, RSJ. That's kind of like my primary one. I know it's going to be popular, but I just think it's the right play on this slate. Jared, I know also the Lamar, that the Chargers Ravens game is also interesting. Is there another stack that you're looking at or a quarterback that you're like, hey, I really want to build around this player?
I mean, I'm trying to think about the games that might go nuts this weekend, and obviously that Browns-Cardinals game kind of sticks out. I know there's some question marks around the health of Kyler Murray, so I wonder if he ends up on fewer rosters because people are worried about his. I think he's got like a bicep injury or something. But that game could go bonkers, and nobody knows who to pair Kyler Murray with. Like, do you play him with Rondell Moore, Christian Kirk, AJ Green, Hopkins? So I think like all the Kyler stacks kind of are a lot less rostered than they probably should be. So like playing those with a Kareem Hunt might make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense. Just trying to hope that you hit on the right ancillary Cardinals wide receiver. I know Hopkins saw his target share kind of boost up a little bit last week without Max Williams, which is just like a really weird thing to say. And he's not, I mean, 7.8. He's usually higher than that. I feel like he's usually priced up higher than that. Yeah, he's usually around like 8K plus, but he's not seeing the same type of target share he's been used to seeing. So I can get behind a little Cardinals Browns stackage. You're going to bring it back. I mean, the guy that no one is going to play is OBJ.
I know.
Guarantee that, because it's the whole, like, especially because Hunt is now chalk, like that just like neutralizes every other Browns player because people will just want to play Kareem Hunt. And it's actually like, and this is something that I think made a less. I know because last week when we talked about, or this was when the Madison news, I know that we were messaging back on Slack. We talked about, I got to play Kirk Cousins to get off of Madison, but maybe the move was to play Kirk Cousins with Madison and some of those other Vikings guys. So I know that the Galaxy brain plays Justin Fields, so maybe it's with Baker Mayfield, Kareem Hunt, and OBJ, and like a Brown stack, and you bring it back with a Cardinals player or something along the lines of that. So I think that's kind of an interesting way. Again, you talking about games that go bonkers. Like we've seen this from Baker Mayfield. Like he just has games where he throws 5 touchdowns. Happened last year against the Bengals. So I think that's kind of probably my large field GPP kind of play.
Chubb too. So maybe they pass more.
Yeah, no, I think I moved up OBJ in my rankings a little bit after the Chubb news broke out because they are going to end up probably having to throw the ball a little bit more. We don't always see the 1-for-1 replacement. Again, Hunt's going to see over 20 touches in this game, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to like try to lean on other players. They need other players to step up because Chubb is like one of the best running backs in the NFL. Like you don't just necessarily replace him with anybody, and they're going to use the other guys, lean on the tight ends, the wide receivers a little bit more. But I also want to talk about the other side of that Chiefs football team game, Taylor Heineke. I think he's a good cash quarterback play. Just really need McLaurin to play. Just like it sucks if he doesn't play because it's just like I really feel like nukes his upside to a point where you probably don't feel great playing him in a tournament unless you can just build because of this price tag. He's cheap enough where you can just jam in studs, but you really want McLaurin to play. I think stacking him with McLaurin makes a lot of sense. You can bring it back, obviously, with the 2 Chiefs main guys. And he's also, and like we don't see those types of quarterbacks usually get super, super popular because of the fact that, he doesn't have the name brand. There is some concerns about, how good is he actually in real life? And it's like, well, we saw Jalen Hurts score 28 fantasy points and suck, basically. So I'm not so sure it really matters how good he is in the short term. In one game, he can be a bad quarterback in real life and still put up fantasy production. Any interest in this? Or so, Heineke, I'll get your thoughts. And then any interest on the other kind of big total game is the Ravens and Chargers with Lamar, Herbert. I know the initial run, I saw Herbert kind of going low roster. I believe it was Herbert with Lamar Jackson kind of getting a little bit more steam. Do you have a lean either way with any of these guys, or is there another game you're looking at?
I mean, I feel like I'd rather play Mahomes than Heineke. I don't know. He feel like he's got more upside and a lot less downside. If you're going to target that game, especially with the McLaurin injury. I was talking to Mario, our injury expert over at PFF, and he was really worried about a possible in-game injury for McLaurin, even if he suits up. Seems like it's going to be pretty risky on that end. Quarterback wise, Joe Burrow against the Lions is really interesting. You got
projections love Joe Burrow. Like every Bengals receiver is like the top value because of Joe Burrow's projection. So, I mean, I've taken a bunch of Joe Burrow overs already. So that may be my exposure to Joe Burrow for week 6, maybe just being props. But yeah, definitely on the Joe Burrow call.
Yeah. And then I feel like the Vikings Panthers game, both those quarterbacks could be interesting. I know that there's like offensive line question marks on both teams, which could kind of kill that game. But you just have really good skill players on both sides of the ball that could kind of blow the game open. So I see some upside there. And then on the cheap end, I think Daniel Jones is interesting. He's going to be back from his concussion. He could like Jalen Hurts his way to 28 fantasy points in garbage time, and then you just stack him with Kadarius Toney or Sterling Shepard, and you know exactly where all the production is coming from. So I think those are my thoughts on quarterback.
Yeah, I like that call. I mean, for in terms of pace of play, just so you guys are aware. So the 4 games that stood out as fast paces, or of the 10 games on the main slate, the 4 games that stood out in terms of they're going to have a fast pace of play, which could basically lead to a shootout like the Chargers Browns, where Carolina and the Vikings, Kansas City and Washington, Baltimore and LA, and then Arizona and Cleveland. So yeah, those are the games I think that are better for game stacking. I know you mentioned Cincinnati and Detroit. Cincinnati just depends on if they decide to throw or not. Like that's the only reason their pace of play is slow, is because during the beginning of the year, they just ran the ball and like were really conservative. We saw it start to open it up a little bit more. So that's obviously the play behind the Bengals is, and because Detroit's run pretty fast so far this year too. So I think that Detroit, Jared Goff, like weirdly just like last week he didn't really play out that way, but he's been like good enough to like keep them in games. Like they've like, it seems like they just lose heartbreakers all the time, but that's important because it's not blowouts. Like they are playing competitive and they're keeping, but they're not good still. So you're going to get efficient play on the other side while they also get production. So I think that Burrow stacks make sense. Again, with Chase and Higgins or Chase, I think you have to do with Chase because it's pretty clear that if Burrow hits his like top tier upside, it's going to be because he throws like an 80-yard touchdown to Jamar Chase. So I think, I mean, I like Higgins and Chase, but Boyd, it's PPR. So we know has 10 receptions in his range of outcomes, even though he's not been targeted nearly as heavily, but he's not going to be popular. So he's an interesting contrarian play with the Joe Burrow stack. Receivers, wide receivers. Man, I actually just I love DeAndre Swift. I play DeAndre Swift, I think, every single week. And I know he's living like middling. He's at like 20, 25 points. Like he's been good, not great. So I'm just hoping he just really smashes. Receivers, again, you're going to do the same thing where you're going to stack with your quarterbacks. I mean, Devontae Adams is just 40% target share the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, played Devontae Adams.
Absolutely ridiculous. The guy man. I do think it's weird though. Like Cooper Kupp is significantly cheaper than him though. So I don't hate necessarily going down to Kupp because Kupp was putting up like Devontae Adams numbers. His target share is 32%. Robert Woods obviously had the massive game 2 Thursdays ago. So Cooper Kupp, I like. And do you think, all right, so this injury thing with Tyreek Hill, let's talk about that. Tyreek Hill, do you think that people will be afraid to play him because he's like really hurt? I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
I think it depends what like the Roto World blurb is on.
It's all about the way
Saturday.
The blurb is.
Or if we get some like Shefty bomb overnight. I don't think people are going to be worried about him just yet, unless we get some news that he's seriously questionable, like we got from McLaurin today.
Yep. Okay. Well, I mean, Andy Reid said he was bopping around looking very spry. So far things are good. And yeah, I think Hill's in a just dynamite spot. Hill and Kelsey. Look, I maybe it sounds too obvious to play Mahomes doubles, but I mean, I don't think I've played them really that much this year. Maybe that's why I'm not good. I don't know, but I think it seems like it's a pretty clear spot to play them this week. Football team just been a terrible defense, but
yeah, Ben Brown is on the Mahomes double. Although he had Mecole Hardman in there to pair with Kelsey or Hill as a way to save some salary and still get upside. So
who do you have as the bring? Did he have a football guy as a bring back? Or was he only just doing the Chiefs stack?
I think he had McLaurin.
Okay.
Yeah, he had McLaurin, but you could do that with Antonio Gibson or McKissick or Ricky Seals-Jones. Like,
dude, okay,
all
yeah.
those guys.
So yeah, if you're watching this right now, so double tight end is in play. So you do Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, RSJ in the flex. Again, we never will ever advocate for tight ends in the flex, hardly ever. But RSJ is pretty much not a tight end. Again, he's like a converted wide receiver, and the way that he's playing, the way he's using that offense, he's more of a wide receiver. So I get that usually it's not optimal to play two tight ends, but the way that his usage is not, he's not being a tight end. So I think it's really in play this week, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know what our optimal is. If you in the PFF optimizer, I'm not sure if RSJ shows up in it. I would imagine he probably would. I have to check it out, but that's something that I'm going to be doing a lot of. It's really, for me, tight end is really RSJ and Kelsey. And then I'll just try to figure this stuff out. I think running back is kind of where you can get different, quarterback. And then I think receiver or a couple other spots, maybe you can try to get a little bit different. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams is banged up. Keenan Allen, 6,400. He still leads the team in target share the last 4 weeks, 24%. And I know you sent out a great little stat nugget about this Ravens defense against slot receivers. So, Jared, you have that stat available.
I do.
All right.
So the Ravens defense to the slot, they have allowed 64 targets, which is the third most, 47 catches, which is the third most, 637 yards, which is the most, 3 touchdowns, and 17 catches of 15 plus yards, which is also the most. So they're getting torched by the slot, which is where our good friend Keenan Allen lines up on about 60% of snaps. And we got big Mike Williams is hurt. So high total game. Justin Herbert might be leaning on his healthier receiver. Mike Williams hasn't practiced all week. So Keenan Allen makes so much sense.
Yeah, I think a Herbert, Eckler, Allen stack. I mean, because remember, Heckler could see more targets in this game too if Mike Williams is banged up. So, God, I hate that Mike Williams is hurt, dude. Like, because this seems to happen to him all the time. Like, he gets banged up and then he's just not nearly as effective. And the Chargers have done weird stuff with their players before, where like they've been healthy or not healthy. They don't have like a full time, like they play like Eckler with his like bum hamstring. He doesn't have any targets. They play Keenan Allen on that weird like Thursday night game. He plays like 30% of the snaps. Like they just do weird things with injuries.
Brandon Staley would never. It's a new era in Los Angeles. Smart coaching.
What do the analytics say about Mike Williams' knee injury? What do they say?
Mario says Mike's not playing this week. So
all right. Well, yeah. So yeah, Keenan Allen, friggin' jam him in. I mean, he's way too cheap, especially on DraftKings. Like, I think in FanDuel, it's probably makes or a FanDuel, Yahoo, where it's half on PPR. Because he just needs to find the end zone, man. Like that's his issue. He's just not scoring touchdowns. But I don't think that Jalen Guyton's going to become like chalk or necessarily. I think he'll get a little bit of steam, but Allen will be the main guy. And make sure to like look at Eckler as well. Like look at Eckler, and then I think the tight ends are interesting. Again, at tight end, I really only like Kelsey and Ricky Seals-Jones. When like game stacking, Mark Andrews makes a lot of sense too. He's got a really good matchup against the Chargers. The Chargers defense, the way that the defensive works, they're just very, very good against deep balls, like the vertical passing game, which basically has been Lamar Jackson like all year. He's been like chucking it deep to like Marquise Brown. So I like Mark Andrews to kind of take advantage of the vertical defense kind of working underneath. I mean, he leads all tight ends in target share. So I think Mark Andrews is in a good spot.
Yep. Agree with that. Darren Waller is cheap, 6,600. I can't remember the last time he's been that cheap.
Yeah, no, I feel like he's due for I mean, if you have like, it's weird because there's no like late game hammers. The games in the late, the window are not great. So maybe if you're dead, you can swap to Waller and just kind of hope and see like he has that 40-point game in him. He's probably like one of the only few guys that's playing in the late window that has that in his range of outcomes. The Dallas receivers kind of fit the mold there as well. Zeke for the Dallas Cowboys. Receivers under 6K or 5K. The ones that kind of point out to me, I'll just kind of list them out and see if you agree or disagree on any. So Pittman, Cooks, Marquise Brown mentioned him, Jacoby Myers, T. Higgins, Tim Patrick. Those were some of the receivers I kind of liked for the 5K to 6K range. And then Rondale Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nicole Hardman, like we also mentioned. And then Bryan Edwards as like a really, really cheap play. He saw a lot of high value targets last week. There's not a lot of great wide receiver value. That's kind of one of the things I took away talking with Ian about the slate. Not a lot of value to be diving in. So like you kind of got to get value at running back, maybe even at quarterback a little bit. And then obviously Ricky Seals-Jones at tight end. Is there a receiver that you like that's a little bit lower price that you feel confident, or you're just kind of like, I kind of like him, but he's a receiver and we know that it's really boom or bust with most of these guys?
Yeah, all these sub 6K receivers are boom or bust.
Yeah, they're pretty they're pretty fringy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested in a lot of the guys you said. Kadarius Toney at 5,600. I wonder if people are going to have sticker shock about his price hike. I mean, we were all over him last week. That was one of the plays that we talked about that I actually went with on my lineup. So I was happy about that. But the Giants are going to probably be losing this game, and they're designing plays for Toney, and he's talented. So I like him at his price. You mentioned Bryan Edwards. Like, why would I play Bryan Edwards when I could play Henry Ruggs? I feel like
Bryan Edwards is $2,000 cheaper.
Yeah, but
that's why
Bryan Edwards.
Dude, he had a ton of air yards last week. It's a new era in Las Vegas. The thing, and that's why it's weird because he saw like very similar usage to Ruggs. Ruggs saw like in week 4, like a ton of air yards, end zone targets, whatever. And then he got his price moved up like significantly, where that did not happen with Edwards. Like his prices stayed down significantly at 3,600. So again, it's really only a price point. He stood out in the high value targets article. That's the only reason why I'm mentioning Bryan Edwards.
Yeah, that's fair. And then if we want to get weird sub 4K, my guy Donovan Peoples-Jones finally saw a bunch of targets and had a nice 5-catch 70-yard game. And I mean, it's Cardinals-Browns, one of the shootouts that we're targeting this week, and getting cheap players in potential shootouts is always viable. Although if Jarvis Landry ends up playing this game, seems like it's 50-50 whether he comes back. Have less interest in DPJ. Paris Campbell also had a bunch of targets on Monday night. He's really cheap and gets the Texans, so that's kind of interesting. And then Van Jefferson, he also in that offense has a ton of upside.
Yeah, Van Jefferson kind of is like, I feel like I write about him every single week as like the low end, because like he's involved a lot. He sometimes looks like the number 2 receiver on the offense, and the other Rams receivers are always super popular. So he kind of like fits every criteria you're looking for in a low roster, low owned, high upside wide receiver. So like that's why he makes a lot of sense in kind of any kind of tournament build. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought him up. I would like to mention as well. Actually, I think so. The name I did not mention that I should have. It's probably my favorite contrarian guy. It's probably Robbie Anderson. It's weird. It's probably Robbie Anderson, but I mean, unlike OBJ, who is going to be low rostered because he hasn't been seeing a lot of opportunities in the offense, and we know that the chemistry has not been there with Mayfield. And I do like OBJ a little bit more now that Nick Chubb is out, but man, it's going to be. I'm going to have to I'm going to struggle trying to button him into my roster. I'm going to probably try and do it because I just know that the upside is there. And especially if this game, like you mentioned, does shoot out. I mean, it would make sense that in the game that Nick Chubb doesn't play, to get off of Kareem Hunt chalk, that you would play Odell Beckham, especially because all of the narrative around him is basically just he's dead. Like it's just like it's all bad perception, and it kind of seems like the spot where OBJ would kind of shove in everyone's face.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the perfect.
I'm on board.
It's kind of like the perfect scenario. So I probably will begrudgingly play him. I probably would not be playing if Chubb was playing. I think that I probably would have just stayed firm and be like, you know what, they're just going to run the ball the entire time. But this makes it a little bit more interesting. But Robbie Anderson, 19 targets over the last 2 weeks, 250 air yards. Like the usage is there for him. since Dan Arrow got traded. So I think that there is an opportunity for him to blow up against the Minnesota Vikings. Again, this is another one of those high-paced games that we like. I don't think that he is. It's not like he's not involved. He is involved in the offense, and he was screaming on the sideline to get him the ball. So squeaky wheel gets the grease. Work with Robert Woods. Maybe it works with Robbie Anderson or Bobby Anderson, as we like to call him. So he's probably one of my favorite GPP plays because he does have the opportunities. Like we talk about chasing air yards, chasing targets, and he has those. So, a big game should be coming. We know he has big play potential. So Robbie Anderson's probably my GPP wide receiver. And again, when you make these GPP lineups, like you look at me like, this is gross. Like this makes you feel sick because when you say this looks perfect, there's no way it's going to work out.
Oh man, I'm glad you brought that up because he was not on my radar, so I'll have to add him to my sheet.
He's
interesting. Yeah. The last guy that I wanted to mention was I'm going to play this wide receiver until it hits because it's going to hit. Rashad Bateman is going to be coming back from injury. He's the stone minimum 3K. Sammy Watkins is out. Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews just both had monster games, so they're going to have elevated ownership. Nobody's going to play Bateman. I don't know how much they're going to use him. I have no idea. Harbaugh, in his press conference today, was like, yeah, he's going to play, and we'll throw him out there and see how he does. So it feels like if Bateman goes out in the first drive and makes a nice catch, maybe they keep feeding him. Was one of my favorite players in the pre-draft process. I think he is going to be a stud. It's only a matter of time until he pops off. So I'm just going to play him every week from now on and enjoy this stone min price tag.
I'm going to play Khalil Herbert and Rashad Bateman in the same lineup, and it's just going to be like rookie sensations. Like all my favorite rookies just blowing up, making me a ton of money. It'll be absolutely glorious. Is there any other play? So that's kind of it for receiver. At least I kind of talked about all the guys. Obviously, you want to stack. Makes a lot of sense. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'll mention again. Like he's probably a good value play. Good potential bring back option. He's seen a lot of targets.
Goff said he wants to feed him. So
he literally has no choice because there's literally no one else to throw the ball to. So it makes sense that Goff would feel that way about Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then just at tight end, I think it's just important to, if you're not playing Kelsey, RSJ, Andrews, just make sure your tight end is either playing in one of these like high scoring environments or is part of a stack with your quarterback, because a lot of tight ends, basically what they do is like, you just want them to score touchdowns. So if you have them attached to your quarterback, they score a touchdown, you're feeling good. I think it's kind of the best way to approach some of these middle tier tight ends. But dude, I just can't get off RSJ, man. I don't know.
I might just lock button him, honestly.
I just don't even care. Like I don't care how he's 3K. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't care. I don't know. I'm playing.
The other 3K tight end, again, I love listening to what other players say. See, sometimes they give us insight into the locker room happenings. But Patriots players, we're talking about Jonnu Smith, that he's due for a breakout game. So
all right, well, he ran less routes than N'Keal Harry, so I'm just very
but the entire Patriots O-line was hurt last week, and they're all back. So maybe they unleash him a little bit.
Jonnu Smith does have a high target rate per route run. I will admit that. He is being targeted when he does run routes. So we will see. It makes sense to pivot off. I get another pivot would be CJ Uzoma, who runs a lot of routes. He's at 3.1K. So you can try to get weird off these tight ends. But the thing with tight ends is they all are just so bad all the time that you could literally just pivot off of him and get the exact same production and it wouldn't even matter. So they all have pretty low ceilings. But the way RSJ is just kind of used as a receiver, I think that it's just so different than these other guys. So all right,
Dalton Schultz has also led the Cowboys in targets for 3 straight games. And he's below 5K. It really doesn't make any sense, but figure Bill Belichick is going to try to take out CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and make other people beat him. So Schultz is kind of interesting.
Well, that game is gross. Patriots, Cowboys, because Cowboys are, it's kind of like we're all kind of waiting for it to like run out on Dalton Schultz, but he just like continues to get targets, and we're just like, what is going on? Like Blake Jarwin, what happened to you, man? Like what's going on? All right, DSTs. Me and Ian agreed on the Lions as a good play at 2,100. I don't know how popular they'll be. I think the people like the Bengals enough where they'll feel like they need to pay up a little bit more for maybe like the Cardinals or Browns defenses. Kyler Murray's banged up 2,700, 2,600 for those guys. But the thing I pointed out about Burrow was he actually ranks third in the NFL in terms of his percent of pressures that turn into sacks. He ranks third in that category. And if you watch that game, and when we were talking about the Lions before, like the Lions don't like roll over. Like they fight till the end. Like they don't get necessarily steamrolled by defense or other offenses. At least they haven't really been the last couple games. They fight hard, they play hard, and they're 2,100, and they make it way easier to get in a lot of other players. Like I looked at like the Ravens at like 2,300 there, like popping in the projections. But I was like, I could probably just pay down it and get the Lions at 2,100. Is there any other DST? And then with the pay up option, be Colts. I know that I think people are like, oh, I can't play. Like, oh, I paid up for the Patriots last week and that was a disaster. Like, I can't do it again. Where it's like, guys, like Davis Mills, yes, he shredded the Patriots defense, but it was like all like third downs. Like he was just like making like not like lucky plays, but chasing passing production on third down is not sustainable. Like the Patriots defense was shutting him down first and second downs. Like it was third downs when he could be a little bit more loose, where he was making plays. So I kind of expect Davis Mills to regress, and I think that makes the Colts defense a good pay up option.
Yep, I like that. The defense that stuck out to me is the Cowboys. I've been playing them ever since they shut down the Chargers offense, and it's worked for 3 straight weeks. So I'm going to go right back there. They're cheap, and they're like Trayvon Diggs gets an interception literally every single game.
He is injured. He's on the injury report though, so you may need to pivot if he's.
Hopefully he plays. And then the Vikings and Panthers both have offensive line problems, and you could see that game kind of like go absolutely bonkers and shootout, or you could see it dud because there's a bunch of sacks and fumbles and stuff. So I think both the Vikings and Panthers are interesting at that mid-range. And then cheaper, anything else that sticks out?
So the one defense that I actually looked more harder at is actually the football team at, I think they're 2K, right? They're the cheapest defense because they're playing the Chiefs. Guys, like, it's really weird, like, why their defense is so bad. It's because their coverage is just so terrible, but their pass rush is still good. Like, if you look at PFF's offensive line, defensive line matchup chart, the football team has is like the third best advantage when the Chiefs drop back to throw. So they can generate pressure. They can. And again, Mahomes is going to make magic, of course. But because the most popular game is going to be Chiefs football team, that no one's going to want to play the DSTs. But time and time again, we see you play the DSTs that play in the shootouts because those are the ones that pop off for turnovers because teams are dropping back and getting sacked and all those things are happening. So I don't think we see the Chiefs like try to run the football at all. So I think it's going to be them dropping back to throw a ton. And I think Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Ron Payne, I mean, look, no one's going to want to play them. And like the Lions, they are cheap. So you're not really wasting a lot by playing them. So I think that they're kind of an interesting GPP play.
As the GPP Galaxy brain expert over here, I'm going to leave you to the Washington defense. I'm not getting that contrarian there.
I don't know, man. Pressure rate is there. If it was a team that couldn't generate pressure, I'd feel less entitled to play it, but it kind of stuck out.
Mahomes is throwing a bunch of picks these days, so
yeah. All right, so that wraps up DSTs. We have a question here, so let's get to that first, and then we'll do our stacks of the week or whatever we like to call them. So Simon, Coolhand, Fields, Eckler, Hunt, Mooney, DJ Moore, Woods, Andrews, Swift, Dallas, D. He's following your Dallas D, Jared. Too chalky. Not if you play Justin Fields. No, I mean, I think that it's pretty fine. I mean, I don't know how popular DJ Moore. I mean, Fields, Mooney is pretty unique. Andrews probably isn't going to be as popular as Kelsey or Ricky Seals-Jones. So I think it's solid.
No, that's a strong lineup. It's got a good blend of risk with the Fields and Mooney stack, and then more safe, chalkier players with high floors.
Write down that lineup, Jared, so we can each play it because it's going to go off. Simon Coolhand, we appreciate you coming in here. Fields, Eckler, Hunt, Mooney, DJ Moore, Woods, Andrew Swift, Dallas, D, the Millie making lineup. Jared, as we wrap up your stack of the week, lock button of the week, whatever, just lay it on me.
Stack or lock button of the week. All right. I am going to go with my boy Kyler Murray, and I'm going to stack him up with DeAndre Hopkins and then run it back with Odell Beckham Jr. because it's Kareem Hunt chalk week.
OBJ. Oh, man. It's going to be fun to watch that play out. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Mahomes doubles. It's chalky. Don't care. Going to go with Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, Ricky Seals-Jones, bringing it back. And then I'll figure out how to wait to get some Robbie Anderson in there. Maybe I'll just play him alone. Just solo Robbie. So we'll see how that pans out. But hey, you got to risk it for the biscuit, as Bruce Arians says. All right. Thank you all for joining us. DFS show, 45 minutes in, talk about the main slate. And again, make sure you check out the PFF rostership projections, get an idea of which one of these 6K running backs is going under the radar. Because I think that's going to be probably where I try to gravitate most of my exposure to. I think it helps give you an edge on the field. Jared, any final words?
Let's go win some money this week. Let's actually play the plays that we talked about.
Yes, important to play the plays we talk about here. And then we can be like Nathan Yonke and take down 10K. Good
legend, absolute legend.
Well, he's gonna be on the show next week. I talked to him already, so he's gonna be on. He couldn't come on this because he had to go. He's going out to celebrate with all of his money. So he's like, I can't do it this week, Andrew. I got big plans, rightfully so. But he'll be on the show next week talking about how to win in DFS. He actually left me with a very important note of how to win in DFS. I'm just pulling it up right now. So according to Nate, the key to winning, just make sure everything in the game goes exactly the way you need it to.
Wow. That's
how you do it.
Excellent.
So, wise words from a Nathan Yonke. Great guy, great fantasy ranker, great fantasy mind. So go make sure you check out his content, my content, Jared's content over on pff.com. And good luck to everyone this week. A reminder, set your lineups, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. You have the